last session, the court had decided to go to the hospital to take the deposition of the late Wadah al-Sheikh, who died after he gave his deposition, and because he was very ill, he had a chronic disease. And when the court, represented by the judge and the two members of the court, the lawyers waived their right to be present after the assassination of their colleague al-Janabi, and because the disease was serious, the sickness, this health situation was serious, and for us not to miss his deposition, the court went to the hospital, and we recorded his deposition, and I will read to the here present the deposition of witness Wadah Ismail Khalil, 54 years old, is a lawyer and is in custody right now since he's been in custody for 2.5 years, and he lives in Al-Qadisiyah. The date of the deposition is October 23rd, 2005. He gave his deposition under oath. Are the microphones open? He gave his deposition under oath after he was made and aware that he was facing the court in the Iraqi High Court. I have no relationship and no enmity with the defendants, and I know among them Saddam Hussein, Barzani Ibrahim, Taha Yassin Ramadan, Awad Hamad al-Bandar, and Abdullah al-Mashaykhi. And I don't know the other defendants, Mizhar Ali, Ali Daesh, and Muhammad Azzawi. In the date, in 8th of July 88, I was the director of investigation in the intelligence branch, which was directed by defendant Barzani at that time. And he informed me that the Saddam Hussein's convoy was attacked in Dugel when he was visiting there. And I went to Al-Dugel with many directors in the mentioned bureau, with many other directors of my colleagues, and we went to the party militia, and the party director was Abu Nabil. And the investigation started in the incident, and I went on site, and it was next to the court in Dugel, and it was a clay wall, and I think that the people were behind the clay wall, and they were about 12 to 15. I found out that through all the empty cartridges around, and which had a height, a specific height that people could be standing up and still capable of seeing beyond that wall. And I also observed that other parts of the police and the military were there, about probably 150 people, with some of the Republican guards too. Everybody was present there. Special forces and the security teams were there with some people of the party too. Mr. Barzani came with former Interior Minister Saadun Shaker, whose role was there just to be there because he was silent all the time. The troops that were there took their orders from defendant Barzani. After taking their orders, they went out into the city and they started arresting citizens without keeping to one of the Shiites or Sunni. Many people were arrested were from the Khazraj tribe who were Sunnis, and there were also different sexes, different ages, and whole families with elderly and women and children. Among those arrested were some of the deserters of the army, but I don't know any identity of any one of them, and I don't know who those families were, except I know the number of those arrested in the town were about 400 people. They were arrested and they were kept in custody in the police department in Dugel, since the intelligence service had no premises in there. And I knew at that time that, and even before I had already arrived, a few people have been killed. Probably 1 to 3 people, they were called in the orchards. One of them was Khazraji. I don't know their names. I don't know the names of the other two either. And they were killed. They were assassinated from the security forces who were there with the convoy after shooting the convoy. And those arrested have been taken to Baghdad in cars of Mercedes, buses with. And that was the second day of the incident, and I gave my report to Barzani. I gave him the first investigative findings and what I knew about the citizens of Dugel, and he agreed to him and he signed it. And I gave it to Mr. Hussein Kamel, who came from Dugel the following day, and he was a personal advisor to Saddam Hussein, and were there many officers, among them Dawood Salem, Iyad Hadi, and he was the Attorney General was Sadiq Salem, and my role was to direct the investigative team during the investigation of the incident. The second day of the incident, many of the families and who were peasants, and they were taken to Abu Ghraib prison, and in 1983, defendant Barzani, and he was still the intelligence head, he asked me to take those arrested to the province of Muthanna, and in effect they were taken by the security forces of Al-Muthanna, and I never knew what happened to them, and I remained the head of the investigation up until 84. And during their arrest, I was moved from Al-Hakimiyya to the intelligence headquarters, and with the directives of Hafid al-Barraz, with whom I didn't have a good relationship. And in July that year, I was arrested. I was sentenced to jail for 27 years and a half. And as to the role of the other defendants, Mr. Abdullah and Ali Daigh and Abdullah Azawi, I know nothing about them. If they were from the party, I don't know what their role was, because I didn't know their faces. And Awad al-Bandar was not with us in the investigation, and I never heard anything directly from Saddam Hussein. But I knew that I knew Abdullah al-Mashaykhi, and he was from the agricultural peasant unions, and he was not He did not take part in the arrest of the people, but on the contrary, the citizens were asking him for help. As to Taha Yassin Ramadan, in the beginning he had no role, but there was a committee that he presided that was named a month later, and I think that its role was to erase all the farms in Dugil, and the other mission was about handling of the arrested people, and I don't know what happened there. And I forgot to say that when I was investigating the incidents, I found a number of empty envelopes. Because the citizens' footsteps had pushed them into the dirt, and the wall was 1 meter and 80 centimeters, and it was a fence, and it was as long as one of the orchards around. And I want to say that through my all along my presence at the intelligence, no one of the arrested people was ever put to trial. And we asked the witness that he said that no one of the arrested was ever put to trial, and he never witnessed any torture. If it happened, he never saw it, and he never had any orders from Barzani or anyone else to torture the arrested. There were 2 or 3 people that I noticed that were rough with prisoners, and I asked for them to be removed to another department, and that happened. And I was there too when I found out that those who probably took part in the attempt were probably no more than 12, and I put that on the report that I gave to Barzani, and I never knew, and I don't know why so many people have been arrested, and I had no power to stop that. He answered that a few officers of the intelligence were gratified by the president, the defendant Saddam Hussein, and I was one among them, and it was, the homage was about 1 year of experience for those who carried out the investigation in the Degil incident. And I want to say also that after the incidents, a few people were killed inside the fields from bodyguards of Saddam Hussein, and I also knew that one of the ones killed in the fields was a bodyguard, and they were consecrated as martyrs, such as Muhammad Met'ab, after it was discovered that they had nothing to do with the shooting. And after another question of the Attorney General, he said that Barzan was the one that gave their orders directly, and also the rounding up the field and all the troop deployment in the region were all under the orders of Defendant Barzani. And after yet another question of Attorney General, he asked that he heard from Judge Abdelaziz Dawood, who was judge at the President Palace at that time, who was investigating in one of the cases, relative cases, that he said that that such an order was issued by Saddam Hussein to bring all those who were capable of carrying a weapon to the tribunal. to the tribunal and to arrest anybody who had anything to do with the incident, and that was in coordination with the party people, and I don't remember the details of the contents of the commission headed by Taha Yassin Ramadan. And later I heard of the liberation or the freeing of some of the citizens, the families that were there, and I didn't know a lot, and anyhow I was serving my sentence anyway, and they asked me my opinion, and I gave a favorable opinion, and I mean, although I was in jail, they were still asked my opinion, and I gave my opinion, favorable opinion, to freeing and to forgive all the citizens. I gave al-Hakimiyya after I was moved from intelligence to Officer Khalil Ibrahim Mahmoud, who took al-Hakimiyya from me after on the 28th of January 1984. And as I said earlier, the party responsible, Ahmed Ibrahim, who was number one in Dugel to follow up with rounding up the participants in the incident, he followed up everything, and after that he was moved to intelligence.